Hello Toy Collector fans, Universal Toy Collector here and welcome to the channel. And welcome to another episode of My Collecting Life, the series where I get to speak to you, members of the toy collecting community, about your own personal collections, finding out what got you into collecting in the first place and what gives you that toy collecting buzz. Okie dokie then, I'm guessing you want to find out who the next guest is. Well, why don't we take a look at some of his collection in a musical montage. Wow, what an absolute super awesome collection that is. Absolutely amazing. And it is my pleasure to welcome John Adams from the Super Awesome Geek Show. Hello, sir. How are you?
Hey, Stu, how you doing?
I'm all good, my friend. Thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate you taking the time out. It's actually very nice to see you face to face and actually get to chat to you in real time.
Yeah,
Awesome stuff.
likewise, Stu. I've been,
Thank you.
I caught on to some of the stuff you've been doing. I think between Matt and Tez and Shabby over at USR and a few of the other guys in the community like Boss Bounty and stuff. And once they clued me in, I started watching what you were doing, and I'm loving it. So it is a pleasure for me to meet you, Stu.
No, thank you so much. Well, as you've seen so many episodes, then you know what it's all about. 10 questions, all about you. Runtime roughly about an hour, but who cares if we go over? It's my show. I can do what I want. So awesome stuff. So we crack on with the first question. What are your childhood memories, and what toy lines were you into?
Oh wow. So yeah, so I think the very first thing we ran the gamut. We were fortunate enough where we were like average family. We had a farmhouse, and my parents would get us like anything that was probably like $10 or less. You know what I mean? So
Mm,
we actually was able to get like a lot of toy lines: Star Wars, GI Joe, He-Man, Transformers. We had a sprinkling of everything, you know. Um, but the two biggest ones were Star Wars and GI Joe. We had like all those action figures for Star Wars and GI Joe, like because it was $1 or $2 to get an action figure, so we were always buying those. And when Star Wars was out, it was Star Wars, and then 82, 83, 84, GI Joe caught on
mm.
and took over right when Star Wars was ending, so we just kind of went right into GI Joe. And so yeah, those were the two biggest ones, Star Wars and GI Joe. But
Awesome stuff.
memory wise, one of the very first things, I have a photo up on the website, and it's my grandmother giving me the Han Solo from, it's got to be Christmas in 1978. And that
Mm,
first Christmas, um the family got together and they all decided which Star Wars figure to get. So like when I went to grandma's, I got Han Solo. When I went to my aunt's, I got like Luke Skywalker or something, and
mm.
so on and so on. So by the time we got back home after visiting all the family members, I had all the Star Wars figures that were out that year, you know.
Oh, how
And
cool.
that was like the big thing, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and I still got that photo when I got Han Solo of me like, oh, look at this thing, holding it up,
Is
and
that the one from A New Hope, or was that
yeah, yeah, the
Empire
New
Strikes
Hope
Back? A
one,
New Hope.
yeah, the New
Yeah.
Hope, yeah,
Oh
yeah,
man,
yeah, yeah.
that was so awesome. I mean, I was too young to fully appreciate Star Wars in 1977. Even though the figures didn't come out until a year or so later. I think I must have been 1982 after Empire Strikes Back that I actually started getting figures and knowing who they were and appreciating them. But like you, I remember getting my first X-Wing and my first TIE fighter with Luke and Vader, and I was just so happy. And
Yeah.
you look back then and you just think, what fantastic memories. And honest to God, I used to love Christmases and birthdays and stuff like that.
Oh
It's
yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. So if you were saying that the figures were about $1, just over $1. I mean, it was pretty much the same over here. You could go in, you can get £1.25, you could get a
Yeah.
figure and stuff like that. The prices now are just
Astronomical. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But I mean, I guess $1 or a pound back in those days would have been, I suppose, as currency or not currency goes, as the rate goes, fairly expensive back then. But you look now and it's just laughable to think that those toys were, for a Millennium Falcon, you're probably looking at 40, 50 quid. Now you're looking at over £100 for it. It's
Yeah. Well, oh, I'm convinced that if they did the Millennium Falcon today, it'd be $400. To
yeah,
quite
yeah,
frankly, and
yeah.
it would be
Well, I mean, look at the one
it
they've
would
done
have to
in.
be a HasLab.
Yeah, well, look at the Falcon they did recently with the vintage collection one from Galaxy's Edge. I mean, that's how much was that going for? That
I
wasn't
don't even
cheap.
know. I don't remember. Yeah.
It's crazy. And talking of toy shops, explain this, sir. That to me, if I walked into your bedroom or your room, I'd be like, Jesus Christ. I mean, there's more stuff there than there is in my local toy shop. That is just incredible. That
Yeah,
is
all the original
amazing. I mean,
vintage, all the original vintage is on top in cases there, and then you've
yeah,
got
yeah.
the other stuff. Yeah, yeah,
That is just incredible. I mean, I've got a few photos that you sent me, but that one caught the eye. That is just incredible. It really is.
and that kind of came out of necessity because I'll tell you, I have two storage sheds full of toys, and I'm
Wow.
currently in the works of rearranging this condo that I live in to where
Yeah.
it's not just one toy room. It's now going to be like I've got the living room and the dining room like with all these shelves and things going on. So I'm making it the toy condo. I'm taking over the whole place.
Wow, that is awesome.
Except for like, of course the kitchen and bathroom and the
Yeah,
master
yeah,
bed. The,
yeah,
the master bedroom won't have anything in it, but the
yeah,
rest of the place is going to have toys all over because and that pegboard came out because I'm of this mindset now where if it's going to stay in storage and be just in a box and I'm not going to be able to look at it and appreciate it, I might as well not even own it. So
mm,
I said all these carded figures, I don't want to open them up. I don't know how to display them. And I saw somebody else doing a pegboard like in a store. And
yeah.
that pegboard that I did probably got rid of like 20 or 30 boxes of stored figures. Now they're all on the
Wow.
wall. And if I want
Yeah.
to look at a different one, I just rotate it. So,
No, that's fair enough. No, it's
it's,
just
yeah,
phenomenal, phenomenal.
yeah. So
So with
it kind of came out of necessity in a sense.
it works. It works. I
Yeah,
like it. I mean, I guess you've seen Only One Kenobi.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
you've seen his wall with his cases and stuff like that.
yeah,
It's just
yeah, yeah.
unbelievable. So with G.I. Joe, I guess you were in that from the very start then, were you? With you with the
Well, pretty close, I would say, because like I collected Star Wars right up to probably like the 83, 84. But I
yeah,
think I think what happened is there was no longer a new movie. Like when I was a kid, I didn't realize the last 17 or the last like you guys call it the last 15, I think.
yeah,
But over in
yeah,
the States for us it was the last 17 just in the way they came out. But I never saw a Han Carbonite. I never saw Luke in the Stormtrooper thing when I
mm,
was a kid. I thought it ended at Return of the Jedi, and those like the last figure we got was
yeah,
Anakin Skywalker as a mail away. We got the Anakin Skywalker as a mail away, and I think that was the last figure that me and my brother got. And
mm,
then so it was probably like 83, 84. Since there wasn't a new movie, it was done. It's like Star Wars was done for us. And when we
yeah,
went to the store, there was GI Joe. So we probably got into GI Joe like 83, 84. And because I remember having to go back and get the GI Joes that came out in 1982.
oh,
Like
okay,
I had to
yeah,
search
yeah,
for them
yeah,
at like
mm,
like mom and pop shops, and like I found a few at like drugstores back then would carry action figures. You know what I mean?
mm,
So I
yeah,
found a few that were just lingering on the shelves, and that's how I got a few of my 1982 GI Joes.
oh
But I
wow,
distinctly
okay,
remember that feeling of, oh my gosh, I found one of the original ones from the first series, and then
mm.
bugging my parents to go back to that store to get the rest of them, and slowly getting them over a period of a few weeks as they as
Oh,
they let me go
awesome,
back every once in a while. So I mean, it
crazy,
wasn't quite right from the beginning of those GI
yeah,
Joe. It was like 83, 84, and then we kept going. I think I collected GI Joe till about 87 or 88, and then I was like I my neighbor got a car and we were going to rock concerts and stuff, and
yeah, yeah.
it wasn't till like 90, 91 or so that I got back into collecting toys. So
So that was
I,
actually
I
going to be
had
my
a
next
I had a
question.
I had a gap for a few years. Yeah, while I
Yeah,
was
that
into
was going to
going
be
to
my
rock
next
concerts.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my next question was going to be, when did you become aware that you were a collector? And do your class? Yeah, I mean, I guess you class yourself as a collector, obviously, because I interviewed the guys from GI Joeberg last week, and they don't see themselves as collectors because they still play and still do stuff with their toys, which is I find that remarkable, and I
Yeah.
applaud that. So I'm assuming you would class yourself as a collector. So when did you become aware that you were a collector? What age?
Well, that happened. I graduated high school in 1991, and I don't exactly remember. My brother thinks it was closer to when I was 16 years old, but I think I was 18. I think it was like
Okay.
91, 92.
Mm,
I came downstairs on my birthday, and on the table was an AT-AT wrapped up in crisp in like. So I unwrapped it, and there was an AT-AT on the kitchen table, and it had a $5 clearance thing. My dad found it at a KB Toys, $5 clearance. And he said, "This is your gag gift. This is a joke. I know when you were a little kid, you always asked for the AT-AT, but we never bought it because it was too expensive." And he goes, "I was walking through the mall doing something, and I saw this thing, and I was like, oh, I can finally get my son the AT-AT he's always wanted." So I bought it as a $5 joke, you know. And he goes, "When you
Yeah.
get home from school tonight, I will have your real gift." Well, I don't remember what that real gift was to this day. I only remember the AT-AT because I was so excited. I ripped that thing out of the
Yeah.
box.
Wow.
I put it together, put the stickers on. I still have that AT-AT. That's the AT-AT in my
Yeah.
collection. And I've got the instructions, but I threw away the box. I didn't think about it back then. I didn't think about
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I went to school and I told my friend Nofrio, I was like, we call him Nof for short. I was like, Nof, I got an AT-AT from my dad. He's like, "What?" So he came home with me after school, and we were looking at the AT-AT, and then we went in the closet and we got out this wooden crate that I had where all the toys were stored in it. And in the crate, it's like it was up in the attic, up in the closet, up in the attic or something. And we found like Jabba the Hutt, and he had a 50-cent sticker on him. So
Wow.
someone in my family, my mother, my father, someone had planned on doing a garage sale, priced all the toys with like 50 cents, a
Yeah. Yeah.
dollar, like whatever. So we were peeling the stickers off, taking them out of bags, and setting up all these toys, all the Star Wars, G.I. Joe, all these Transformers and He-Man and Power Rangers. And I mean, it was like everything. Well, not Power Rangers yet, but we got into that. We
Yeah.
ended up,
Yeah.
him and I got into that because of this. So Nof was like, "Man, this is so cool going through this stuff. We should go to garage sales and find out if anyone's getting rid of their stuff." So him and I started going to local sales. We started going to Star Trek conventions. We started going to all these things and just buying up old toys, Star Wars, GI Joe, like all that stuff that we grew up with, and that got us into being a collector. And I've pretty much been collecting ever since. But at some point, Nof and I, we said, yeah, I think we were at a Star Trek convention and we were looking at the booths and we were like, we should do a booth like that, because we were coming across stuff like Bionic 6 and other things that we didn't collect. We collected Star Wars, G.I. Joe, Transformers, He-Man. And we were like, what do we do with all this stuff we're buying that we don't collect? It was piling up. And when we were at a Star Trek convention, we were like, that's the thing. We get one of those booths and sell it. So him and I started a business, and we did it for like 7 years together, selling toys, video games, everything. And we would take that money and then go buy ourselves Star Wars and G.I. Joe and Transformers.
Wow.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So it kind of like snowballed into this thing. And then of course, because we were starting to sell, we started paying attention to the 90s market, and we were buying Power Rangers and X-Men that came out, the Star Trek Playmates, and I was collecting all that stuff. I collected the Playmates from Star Trek. I collected Power Rangers. Him and I would run home from school and watch Power Rangers after school every day, and the
Wow.
whatever other cartoons and things were on,
Yeah.
like Mask and all that stuff. And it just kind of snowballed from there, and I to what I have today, like, so
It's easily done, isn't it? Once you start dipping your toes into that water, you get dragged in quite quickly, don't you? I mean, it's it's the one thing. I mean, it is an addiction to a certain point, isn't it? Because I now have dipped my toes into pins and I wouldn't say pin trading, because I don't trade my pins. The ones I get for myself. But like helmets, lightsabers, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And there's so much. I mean, I never thought that I'd be anywhere like this. Never thought I'd be doing anything like this. Basically, I just blame all the guys that I follow on YouTube. It's their fault. That's back in 2020. I mean, I've always been a collector, but it was predominantly just vintage Star Wars stuff. That's all I wanted to collect, was vintage Star Wars stuff, and maybe some of those Kota Beati or whatever you want to call them.
Oh yeah. I know what you're talking
those kind
about.
of things.
Yeah.
But it was a very small but manageable collection that I had. And then, of course, obviously 2020 come round, and then I started watching more people on YouTube and figure reviews and stuff like that. And there you go. It's just once you're hooked, that's it. It's very addictive. But but like I say, I think your collection's fantastic. I really do, and you've got a big variety, a wide variety of um, toy lines there, which is bringing me on to my next question. What was your favorite toy line when you were growing up, and why? Because I know you said your main one was Star Wars and G.I. Joe. If it was a choice
Yeah.
between the two of them at the time, I guess it was. Was it the
It
fact
was
that you were?
it has always been Star Wars, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, Star Wars is the number one thing in my life and the number one thing that I would love
Mm,
to collect. Um, that I do love to collect. I mean, I say would have because I'm getting out of, like, I've been collecting all the Black Series, vintage collection, you know, everything that modern that's coming out. But these
mm,
prices, like we said earlier, the prices are
yeah.
making me stop. They're making me
Yeah.
they're making me very selective. So I'm kind of like, instead
Yeah.
of getting every Black Series, it's like, okay, I'll get original trilogy. Like if they come out with another Cantina Alien, I'm gonna buy it because I've got a couple, you know. So it's
Yeah.
like I can't get everything anymore, but I would love to. They look great, believe me, they look
Mm.
fantastic. It's just the prices. I feel like they're outpricing
Uh,
me.
I mean, to be fair, John, I think everybody's in the same boat now, aren't they?
Yeah.
Whether it's they're
Well,
cutting back on getting vintage collection, whether they're cutting back on getting Black Series,
yeah.
people
Well,
just can't afford to keep buying.
the way I look at it is, a few years back, I could get 5 or 6 Black Series figures for $100.
Yeah.
Now it's like you're lucky if you get 3 Black Series figures for $100. So now the mindset changes. Like 3 or 4 years ago, I was like, 6 figures for $100 is pretty good. I have a hard time doing that with vintage. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Where now it's like 3 figures for $100. Well, do I want 3 modern figures or 3 vintage figures? I'd rather have 3
Yeah.
vintage. So now
Yeah.
it's like that $100 is shifting towards vintage instead of modern. It's
Mm.
like, let's complete some of these vintage collection things,
Yeah.
you know, rather
Yeah.
than keep buying the modern. So
I mean,
I'm
I used to pre-order quite a bit, but I've cancelled so many
oh
pre-orders.
yeah, yeah.
Just simply because you look at it when you pre-order and it says it will be May 2023, for example, and then it will come like 3 or 4 months earlier, and it sort of like throws my budget out, and I can't afford to do
Yeah,
that.
do.
So that's the issue. So the only figures that I pre-order now will be um, the Black Series 40th anniversary figures and the original 96 figures that are coming out in the vintage
Vintage
collection.
collection. Gotcha.
So
Yeah.
any figure that was in the original 96 Kenner collection, I will pre-order that figure. But other than that, if I get it, I get it. If I don't, I don't. Now I'm not.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It just becomes impossible to sort of collect everything now because of the prices, and it's across all the toy lines, isn't it? I mean, everything's going up.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Except for McFarlane toys. They're still $20.
Yeah, well,
Todd McFarlane.
let's hope they stay that $20.
Yeah.
Um,
Todd McFarlane knows what he's doing. But Star Wars, this is the thing, okay? Like, I have a story that goes along with this as to why. So my mother used to take me to movies, and
yeah,
she said that every time she would take me, I would get up out of my seat, I would run up the aisle, I would sometimes, you know, she'd be watching the film, and if I was sitting near the aisle, she goes, she'd turn and I'd be gone. And I'd be out in the lobby, like talking to the popcorn guy or something, you know? So she was like, you never sat in your seat. My godfather told her to take me to Star Wars. He had already seen it. And
yeah,
he came to town to visit, and he was like, you got to take John to go see Star Wars. So after he left, Mom took me to Star Wars. And she said that I was kind of fidgety in the chair, like, you know, normal, like the way I am, hyperactive and fidgety, and just kind of like, she didn't think I was going to sit there the whole time. But she goes, the music started, that ship came across the screen. She goes, you just suddenly stopped and stared at the screen, and then you moved. She goes, you moved forward on your seat and was like, and then the movie ended. She goes, you were there the whole time,
that is
didn't say a
amazing.
word, just fixated on the screen. The movie ended. She goes, you looked at me and went, can we go again? And she took me to see Star Wars 23 times. Bless her
Wow,
heart. Yeah.
wow,
Because I was
that
I
is
was
phenomenal.
I just kept
Wow,
asking. And back then, movies would, you waited a year and the movie
Yeah,
would
yeah,
re-release. So
yeah.
some of that was during that period. Like we probably went 10 or 12 times when it was in the theater the first time. And then it came back a year
Yeah, yeah.
later and we went again. And it was at a drive-in down the road. So we went to the drive-in and saw it a couple times, But I'm saying over the course of those first couple years, we saw it about 23 times.
That's
And
incredible. Wow.
some of my best memories. And I remember going down with my friend Joey. I had a neighbor kid named Joey, and he was one of, we became best friends. And right when we woke up in the morning on the weekends when we were off school or whatever, he'd come over
Mm.
with his Star Wars figures. We'd be playing in the front lawn and doing dumping them out of our bins and just playing with them in the front lawn and stuff. And it's like my best memories of Star Wars, as a kid,
Yeah,
So
yeah. I
that'll
get that. I
always,
mean, I was too young to watch Star Wars when it first came out. Wasn't old enough to sort of like understand Empire, but my first memory of a Star Wars film was Jedi.
yeah,
Return
yeah.
of the Jedi. That was 1983. So yeah, when the special editions come out of the original trilogy, I was super hyped to go and see them. And as much as I enjoyed them, I still think that there are bits in there that I wish they hadn't have put in, like that Jabba the Hutt scene. I can understand why they did it because of how they originally filmed it. He was a human, but then him walking over his tail and stuff like that, it just didn't look right. And to me, that story that didn't add to the story. That scene didn't add to the story because Han had already previously had the same conversation with Greedo in the cantina, and then he's having exactly the same conversation again with Jabba. So I think they could have done away with that, in my personal opinion.
See, I was such a fanatic of Star Wars that I had known about all those extra scenes. And what disappointed me when I went to the special editions was they left out all the stuff with Biggs.
Yeah,
So I'm like, if you're gonna put stuff in like this Jabba the Hutt scene, why not add in the big stuff, the stuff with Cammy and Fixer, his Luke's friends, and that when they're like, there's a battle up there, there's a battle up there, look, and they, and they tell him he's nonsense and everything, and I'm like, I want all those big scenes back in, that because that makes Big's death at the end more important because you see
definitely
their friendship.
Yeah,
But yeah, I kind of get what you're saying. Like, I don't mind the Jabba the Hutt scene that much, but the first time they did it really looked bad. Jabba looked terrible, and they've since like updated Jabba so he looks a little bit better. But I still think even today there's room to update that even more. Like today, with today's technology, they could make it so Han doesn't have to step on his tail. You know what I mean? They could make it so he goes around the right way. Actually, they could actually lift Jabba up and have him in a hover car so he's floating around, instead of trying to wiggle around like a slug, So I mean, like,
definitely.
I think that since they already went and messed with the movies, I personally think they should mess with them again and make them even better because it's like they were great the way they were originally. The special editions in some cases made them kind of hokey and worse. But now you could take those scenes they added and make it even better.
Well,
and you could still add the Camera and Fixie or the Cammy and Fixer stuff and the big scenes, add all that back in and make it a real good polished film. But I also think they need to do that with the prequels. Because I watch episode 2, especially like Attack of the Clones, right? And the CGI in Attack of the Clones is just awful. It is the absolute worst by today's standards. That whole movie needs to be redone to be modernized and brought up to today's standard. And I really want them to redo the prequels. Just give it that special edition treatment and bring that CG up to today's level. And I'm all for that. I just want to see them in the glory that they could be, as opposed to
definitely.
And I don't mean get rid of, and I don't mean like totally erase the originals, because we have streaming today. With all the streaming stuff today, they could even do that with Star Wars. Like, why not put the original cut of Star Wars up on a stream on Disney Plus, and then say, here's the special edition, and then later on we're going to do a special edition that cleans up the special editions, and then do that with the prequels. Here's the original cut of the prequels,
Mm.
and here's the special edition version of the prequels for those of you who want that. So it satisfies everybody. You know what I mean? You can watch
Yeah,
whichever version
definitely.
you like. Because
Definitely.
what difference does it make? It's streaming. It's just space on a computer somewhere on a server. They don't. You know.
Oh dear. Anyways, do you have a holy grail piece that you would like in your collection? So there's something that you haven't got yet, and
Yeah.
you do. Go on.
I have two. I have two big ones.
Oh.
So when I was a child, I owned both of these things when I was a kid.
Hmm.
And I really, really, I have been wanting them ever since. I mean, and I can never find one in good condition at a price that I'm happy paying. These prices for these things are astronomical, and I just can't bring myself with my current budget. I mean, if I was a millionaire, of course I would just go buy it. But I mean, with the current budgets and the way things are,
Yeah. Yeah.
I've never been in a position in my life to be like, I can justify spending that much money on that thing. And one of them is the Shogun Warriors Godzilla.
Oh,
I
okay.
I had the Shogun
Wow.
Warriors Godzilla with the flicking tongue and the
Yeah.
fist that shot off, and I loved that toy as a kid. I was stomping on all my stormtroopers and Luke Skywalker with his
Ah.
big feet, running them over and like eating them with Godzilla, and it was like fighting the Rancor with Godzilla versus
Mm.
Rancor, and it was like, so I would love more than anything to have one again. And every time I see one, $300-400, and I'm just like, I can't bring myself,
Wow.
and there was actually one time, I know a shop near me, hey, had two of them in stock. I didn't have the money, and then by some, I don't know if it was like Christmas or something happened where I got an
Mhm.
influx of money from
Yeah.
family or whatever, and they were like, go buy yourself something nice. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've got this extra chunk of money. I can go over to the store and maybe I can make a deal with him. I brought like a couple things to trade, I think, and I was like, maybe I can trade him these couple things with this little bit of cash. I can get one of the two Godzillas that he has. And I went over there and they were both gone. I was
Oh,
like,
gotcha.
damn it.
I
you
I bet
know
they were considerably cheaper as well, weren't they, than what they're going for today?
oh yeah, they were probably cheaper than what they are today. Yeah.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
the other one is the Clash of the Titans Kraken.
Oh,
Do you remember the
okay.
Kraken from with the
Yeah,
four
yeah,
arms? And
yeah.
I mean, like, I love monsters, and again, my brother and I had the Kraken when we were kids, but
Mm.
these things just got broken apart and just disappeared over time. And yeah, I would love to have another Kraken, but again, I've seen one Kraken in the last 10 years in a store,
Mm.
and he wanted $800 for it, so never bought it.
Bloody hell. I tell you, it's interesting you say about the Godzilla and the Kraken. Do you follow a guy called Gojitron?
Oh yeah, I know Gojitron. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. He's the same. He loves all that sort of stuff. He's got a fairly decent collection and stuff like that, and he likes all his monsters. And he was saying that he likes the original Clash of the Titans, the Harry. Oh, what's
The
his name?
Harryhausen, yeah, Ray Harryhausen.
Harryhausen.
Yeah,
That's it. Ray
yeah,
Harryhausen. Yeah, yeah. He
yeah,
likes all that sort of stuff. So it's interesting you've said that because as soon as you said it about Godzilla, I thought, well, Gojitron likes Godzilla. So yeah, yeah, that's awesome.
yeah.
Do you have a most prized item in your collection? One that you thought, oh Jesus Christ, I better take this, and that's the only,
Oh yeah,
just
like
one.
if there was a fire, it's going with me. Um,
Yeah.
that is my Darth Vader 12 back original Star
Okay.
Wars. And
Wow.
some of it, a little bit of it is the story too. Like a lot of things in my collection. I don't know if you do this,
Mm,
Stu, or if other people do, but there's a lot of things that have a story with them.
mm,
And the 12 pack Darth Vader, I had moved out of the farmhouse I grew up on in New York. I grew up in New York, upstate New York, and on a farmhouse with like 50 acres of land. And
wow.
I had moved out, got a job at Xerox,
Mm,
and I was, in my own apartment working, but people in the neighborhood, people in the area started to know that I collected toys and comics.
okay.
Well, someone moved into the house like a mile up the road on the road we lived on, and they found in the attic when they were cleaning stuff up, or maybe it was the basement, I don't know, but somewhere in one of the rafters, they found a Christmas present shoved in there. And it was still wrapped in Christmas wrap, and they pulled the top
Whoa.
off the Christmas present,
Wow.
and in
Really?
it was the Star Wars Darth Vader 12 pack.
Oh my
And they
God.
knew, like, someone, a neighbor or someone up there must have told them, well, you got to take that to the kid down the road. He collects those things and he'll know what to do with it. So they show up at my dad's place, and they're like, my dad calls me up and he goes, hey, I got these people who just moved in up the road and they've got a Star Wars figure. Will you come over and look at it? And I was like, sure. So I got in my car, ran over back to the house from my apartment, and I get in there and I meet these new neighbors and see the thing, and my jaw must have dropped. I was just like, because even back then, this was like mid to late 90s. I was like, even then, you're like, holy crap, it's a 12 back. It's an original Darth
Oh,
Vader. Like,
yeah. Yeah.
this is insane. Like, you don't see these that often, you know? And at that point, they were selling for $100 to $150. And I told the lady that. I said, you know, I would love to own this in my collection, but I got to tell you, I got to be upfront. This is worth around $100 to $150. And quite frankly, I don't have that much money to give you. But I would not take anything less than that if you start going around trying to sell it at a comic store or
Yeah.
somewhere,
Yeah.
you know, or
Mm.
try to sell it yourself through the newspaper or whatever, because, you know, we didn't have the internet back then to do this stuff, you know, the
Mm.
way that we do today.
Yeah.
And she was really nice. She went, you know, what can you give me? And I'm like, I got $40 on me, but that's like all I can do. You know, that's all I had on me in cash, you know. And
Yeah.
she was like, give me the $40. It's better than what I had. I had nothing before I found this.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
And you clearly will love it and keep it. And she goes, you're not going to get rid of it or sell it. And I'm like, no, it's going to be my collection forever. So she let me have it for $40, and
How cool.
I still
Wow.
have it. It's sitting right up there, you know, like,
See,
so
that's phenomenal. I
so
mean, yeah, I love hearing that kind of stuff. It's just,
yeah, it's just, you know, and
it's amazing.
so I mean, like, that it's just that memory, that whole thing that goes with it is part of the reason. It's not
Mm.
just the item, it's that I can remember that feeling. I can remember, like, the joy of when I found that thing and just being like,
Mm.
holy crap, I've got this in my hand, you know.
Yeah.
You know
God,
that.
I'm not being funny. I think everybody who collects Star Wars would say, in hindsight, I wish I would have known then what I
Oh
know
yeah,
now as regards
yeah.
to how much these figures were worth, the different card backs, the variants. Because as a kid, I'll be honest, I wasn't interested in the variants. I wasn't interested in the card backs. All I wanted to do was rip that toy open
Yep, yep,
and play with it.
yeah.
And I've got to say, it must have been 97. It was 97. I was driving around doing my job, and we was at a town local to where we are, or just down the road from where we are. And I thought, well, you know, we were on break. So me and my crewmate, we jumped out and we went in to have a look in this shop, and it was an old antique shop. And in the middle of this antique shop, there was a cabinet, and in them they had all loose Star Wars figures. Pretty good. I mean, 97, you know, then those days the figures were in still pretty good condition. And I was like, wow, wow. And it was then that I thought, oh, maybe I, you know, and I remember the guy, I spent 12 quid on an Imperial Commander. And he just said, 12 quid for that. He goes, you're mad. And I was like, no, I'm not. I'm not mad at all. But wow. And you just, I just, now I couldn't even afford to get a 12 back. Do you know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
just
No,
the
no,
money, and
not at all. No. Yeah,
as much as I'd love it and stuff like that, but
yeah. Like, I don't
but that
even,
is what that was a decent holy grail.
even back, even like you're saying, in the 90s, I remember seeing some of the figures for more than I had a limit of like $60. I was like,
Yeah.
I'll spend $60 on a carded figure, but there's no way I'm spending that more.
Mm.
So, like, I still don't own like a Yak Face or a Mana Man and EV99. Like, those are the three I need to
Yeah.
have a loose collection complete. I still need those three
Wow.
figures.
Yeah. I mean, they're going for stupid money now.
But back then they were going for 100 to 150, and even then I thought, I can't spend that. But
Yeah.
nowadays I'm like, man, I wish I did. I wish I just splurged and spent the $100 on a Yak Face
Well,
back in the 90s, because There's
Yeah.
like I go to my local shops today and they're $700,
I
for a
know
yak
it's
face.
outrageous.
Like,
I
yeah,
mean, I'm lucky. I got my figures. I think I've still got about. I think it's about 8 or 9 left of the last 17 or last 15 to get. And Yak Face and Amanaman were 2 of the last figures I got, and I paid an extortionate amount for those. It was a lot of money. But the rest of them, I was quite lucky because I got in just before the prices started
yeah,
to go up, and I count myself lucky that I got them when I did. But that's the only reason why I've held off getting those other figures to complete that collection, because the money, and
yeah, yeah,
I can't justify paying that kind of money at this moment in time.
yeah.
I've got a Luke. In Stormtrooper disguise. I got him from Stan Solo,
Oh, okay,
because the
yeah,
only way I could get him in my collection would be to have. And I know there's purists out there, but to me, it's my collection, so I'll collect what I
no,
want.
I
If
I
I
agree.
can afford, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, oh, no, I agree. I'm considering for those last 3 because I need EV99, a Man,
Yeah,
and Yak Face. And I thought the same thing. I was like, I might as well just go buy them from Stan Solo because I can
yeah,
get them for like $30 or $35 each, and at
yeah.
least they'll be there. And then if somewhere down the road in the future I stumble across one at a garage sale or a community sale,
There you are.
and
Yeah,
I can just replace the Stan Solo with
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Because
definitely.
believe me, that's happened. I was on eBay one day, and I always look at job lots, the big
Mm,
piles of figures.
yeah, yeah.
And there was a lot where there was like a Darth Vader case and probably about 80 Star Wars figures of various ones and conditions. And in it
Mm,
was a Han Solo Carbonite.
yeah,
And I just watched it until it was going to end. And I'm one of those guys that right at the end, I start bidding like in the last 10 seconds,
yeah,
and because I feel like if you on eBay, the way it works, if you start bidding earlier in the week, then
yeah.
someone
It
else
bumps the
bids.
price up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
someone else bids, you bid. All you're doing is bidding yourself up. So if you just
yeah.
leave it until the last 10 seconds, set an alarm on your phone or whatever. But anyways, I won the lot for $180.
Wow.
So I got 80 figures, including the Han Carbonite, for 180. And if I had just gone out and bought a Han Carbonite, I probably would have spent
You'd be paying
180
that.
to
Yeah,
or
yeah.
$200 or whatever.
It's
So I
mad.
had all these extra figures on top of it, so I felt better at spending the money because I had all these extra
Yeah,
figures on top of it.
yeah,
And like that's how I got my General Lando Calrissian, the General. I went to a sale where they have a parking lot and everyone brings their cars and they sell out of the back of the car.
yeah, yeah,
I think
yeah.
over there, you guys literally call it a car boot sale, right?
Car boot. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, where
yeah,
over here they call it garage sales or parking lot sale or whatever. They don't usually, but yeah. So
yeah.
yeah, it's a car boot sale, and I got there early. It wasn't supposed to open till 9 o'clock. I was there about eight
Mm,
thirty, and I'm walking around and I see a guy with his van and he's got a little table and he's moving stuff out of the van and putting it on the table. And I see a Ziploc bag full of Star Wars figures. And I just said, "Hey man, are those original Star Wars?" He's like, "Yeah." And I said, "How many are in there?" And he's like, "I don't know, 15 or 20." And I was like, "Can I just buy the whole bag?" And he goes, "What?" And I'm like, "I'll just buy them all." And he goes, "You want to look at them? What do you want to?" And I was like, "No, just give me the bag. I'll just buy them." And he's like, "I don't know, $40." And I was like, "Yeah, here's $40 for the whole bag." And I just walked
wow.
away I gave him $40 and walked away with the Ziploc bag. And I go to my car. I was gonna like stick them in the glove box
Yeah.
so I could look around the rest of the car boot sale. And I go to my car and I'm sitting in the car and I'm pulling out the figures and there's a General Lando in the bag.
Oh wow.
And I was like, holy crap, this is another one I need of my last 17. And
Wow.
again, it would have otherwise cost me a couple $100. So,
Yeah, it's
it's
crazy.
like, yeah. So I'm really big on, like whenever I go to something like that, that's what I do. I buy lots. I'll just buy the whole pile. Like I just recently bought, another Chewbacca 12-inch and a land speeder and stuff because
Wow.
I walked into a small comic and toy show and this guy had a pile of Star Wars stuff on his table. And I just went, "How much for all the Star Wars?" And he's like, "Well, I don't know, like give me $60." And I just went, into the bag and gave him the money, and and I've got like all
wow.
these vehicles, and I didn't need, like, there was a couple things, like there were mini rigs and a few things I needed, but I didn't need the Chewbacca. But I'm like,
Yeah.
someone in our toy community might, and I can trade
Yeah.
this for something else, or
That's a
and
good point.
there was a stormtrooper, a 12-inch stormtrooper,
Mm.
which I already had a stormtrooper, and I originally thought I was going to trade him. But when I stood him next to Darth Vader, my 12-inch Darth Vader, I was like, Darth Vader looks damn good with two stormtroopers. So I was like, I'm keeping
That's
the other one, like.
fair enough. So, moving on. What made you do a YouTube channel, and who were your influences?
Well, that's so I started out doing a podcast. My
Okay.
one of my really my one of the I mean, he's pretty much a brother to me. He's like literally one of my best friends. This guy Jason when I lived in Seattle, Jason came to me one day and he said, "I want to do a podcast." And he's like,
Mm.
this was like, boy, more than 10 or 12 years ago. This was a long time ago.
Wow.
And he's like, I want to do a podcast. And he's like, I want to
Mm.
name it the Super Awesome #1 Geek Show. And we went to get a website, and I was like, yeah, I'll do this with you. We went to get a website, and we were like, oh my gosh, do we put in NO1 for #1? Do we spell out number one, NUMBERONE? Or do we do like number and then the number one, like,
Yeah.
and we were like, this is too confusing. Nobody's ever gonna, you're never gonna be able to say, go to super awesome #1geekshow.com, because they're never gonna know how to type in #1. So we dropped the #1 and just went with Super Awesome Geek Show. And
Wow.
we did the podcast, and right away I was shocked. So immediately, like within the first, we do like one episode talking with a couple of our friends, and we got a guy that did music to make up an intro for us. And I went
Mm.
in his recording studio and recorded this loud intro to make it all work. And then like the second week in, I get a comic book artist named Royden Lepp who wants to be interviewed and be on the podcast. And I was like, oh my gosh, Jason, we can get like
Wow.
actual people. So then we started getting people from Marvel Comics, IDW, Transformers guys. Then we were getting voice actors. Like we had Ashley Eckstein on. We've had,
Really? Oh,
yeah, I mean,
wow.
we had, I've had Philip Anthony Rodriguez, who did the Fifth Brother in Rebels.
Yeah, yeah.
We had Robbie Amell, who did Firestorm on the CW shows, and I mean, it was like we got Angus Scrimm from the old like Phantasm, The Ball Is Back, and all that.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
so we started
Wow.
getting all these actors and voice actors, and they would come on the podcast. Well, eventually, like our other co-hosts, we had a couple other people that were regulars, co-hosts on the show.
Yeah.
One of the girls moved to Edmonton, Canada. She got a job working in video games. Another girl moved from Seattle to Texas. She got busy with her family and her own business. And it just
Mm.
kind of like things sort of moved so that it was like, and then Jason wanted to do other stuff. So it was like, it ended up being like to a point where it was just me. And I just said, Jason, do you guys, and the rest of you guys, do you care if I keep the Super Awesome Geek Show name and move it to YouTube? Because it's something I can do on my own and make videos and just kind of casually do this and not have it as like it was, and they were all like,
Mm.
no, go ahead, take off, do whatever you want. So I started the Super Awesome Geek Show YouTube channel, and it was just basically an extension of the podcast,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
it evolved into what it is today. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So
Wow.
it was kind of like a group effort that kind of transformed into what it is now. You know what I mean? So
Wow.
it wasn't really that like some of my very first influences were people who started right around that same time, 10 or 12 years ago, like
Mm.
like Jeff and Taylor over at Marvin Dog Media, who do like a Star Wars toy podcast. It's always on Star Wars
Okay.
toys.
Yeah, yeah.
And some of the guys in Seattle that I knew, like Galaxy of Toys with Jason, Forlom Tazukis with Jacob, and
Mm.
Jedi Business with oh, who was Jedi Business? But anyways,
Yeah.
um those guys were in the Star Wars club that I was in when I lived in Seattle. So it was kind of like that was all a lot of the influences were those people back then. Gus Lopez, I mean, I used to go to Gus's house all the time, and it was just like seeing these collections that these people have and getting to know them, and it just kind of snowballed. You know, that was where a lot of my main influences were back then. And
So with the podcast, how long did you do the podcast for? How long was that going for? And now
until
I
2018.
2018. Wow.
Yeah,
Okay, so it was quite
yeah.
a while then. Yeah.
It was I think it was around 2014 to 2018 was the podcast part of it, and then after that I've just been doing YouTube
So
pretty much.
because I do a live stream every month with Scuba Pete. So basically it's just on here chatting, but we're actually live and we've got people commenting and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What with the podcast, how I've never got my head around how a podcast works. Because I'm not that
Well,
do you know what I mean? I'm still relatively new to this. So what
yeah.
are the main differences between doing the podcast and say like a live stream on this platform?
Well, nowadays it's not much different. You know what I mean? But back when I started it, it was literally like you would get on and you'd have to have a program to record the audio,
Okay.
you know, and then
Yeah.
I would actually post that on the website superawesomegeekshow.com, and we
Okay.
had to
Right.
we had an RSS feed. It's called an RSS feed that we would have installed on the website. So whenever a new audio clip was posted on the website, the RSS feed would then feed that through the internet to iTunes, iHeartRadio. We're on Podbean, TuneIn Radio. You know, so it would go to all these different podcast aggregates, and where nowadays you literally could just post to YouTube and be done with it. You know what I mean? You don't really have to go through that whole business of having an RSS feed and get it sent out to all because quite frankly, a lot of people use YouTube the same way you would use a podcast client, and they just, if they can't watch you while they're driving in the car, they'll just listen to it. You know what I mean?
So you could still then on here, for example. I mean, I use StreamYard, so I can do it so where I can record what we're doing now and download that, or I can just download the audio.
Correct.
And not have so. And then that if I download the audio, then I could put that onto YouTube, and I could put that onto iTunes or something like that. Is that?
Well, I'm not.
Hypothetically speaking,
I actually am not sure if YouTube has an RSS feed that would send to iTunes, but you definitely like in my case.
See, it wouldn't be me directly putting it onto YouTube, then going from YouTube to I can download my audio onto this computer, so then I'll have that file on this computer. Then I'll go through like what do you call it, a video maker sort of thing, like an editor process, and then I can do my editor. So for my editor, could I download it?
Yeah, you could basically send it to iTunes from your computer. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay.
Just the audio.
I'm not going to do that at the moment. But I just always fascinated me.
Because here's the thing, I've actually considered going back and doing that. Because I do the same thing. I have live streams once in a while, and I was like, you know what? I should be taking the audio from that live stream and posting it on the site and getting that sent back to because the like I just checked today, in fact, and the podcast is still up on iTunes. It's just the last episode was in 2018. So I'm and they're all there. You can go back and listen to all the old episodes. So I'm like, man, I should just start posting again, and it'll show up on people's feeds. Because we had probably around 10 or 12,000 followers on iTunes from the thing. So I'm like, yeah, because then what if that would bring more people to the YouTube channel if they suddenly saw, hey, Super Awesome Geek Show's back on iTunes. Oh, he's got a YouTube channel. You know what I mean? And
it's worth a try, isn't it? You know.
Yeah, it's been something in my head that I've been thinking, like, why not strip the audio out of these live streams and just post them up as on iTunes again? Definitely. You know, yeah.
Okay, so moving on to the next question. What toy lines do you currently collect?
So this will probably be a two-parter on modern figures. I love the new GI Joe stuff. I've been collecting all that. I was heavy into Black Series. I think I had everything Black Series up until the newest style box. Like I have
Mm.
the blue bar, the red bar, and then the red and black box. I pretty much have all those. But then when it started getting more expensive and things started changing, I had to be more I have to be more picky with what I buy.
Mm.
Vintage. I love the vintage collection. I'm still trying to get all the vintage collection because I love those card backs. I just
Yeah.
whenever
Yeah.
even if I pass on one, when I see it in the store at Target, I'm like, I'm picking up and I'm like, oh damn it, this looks so good. I gotta get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
I
just
get that. Yeah.
yeah, and then I love Marvel Legends, but I'm not
Mm.
all in on Marvel Legends. I do Marvel. I'm a big comic book guy. I've been collecting comics
Yeah.
since I was 4 years old.
Mm.
I mean, there's 500 or 600 comic boxes between my house, my mother's house, the storage. There's comic boxes everywhere, and I still collect. I still go to the comic store every other week and pick up my comics. So I'm
Mm.
still collecting. Um, so what I wanted with Marvel Legends is I wanted the comic book versions of the figures. So
Yeah.
I'll buy anything that looks like the comic or the cartoon we had in the 90s. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
those
Yeah. I know.
that old
Yeah. Yeah.
Spider-Man cartoon, the old Marvel, the old X-Men cartoon, I will get that stuff. But I'm not I love the MCU. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will go see every MCU movie the day they're released, and I love it. I am so on board with this MCU stuff. But I don't collect those action figures because
Mm.
when I see them in an action figure form, that's not my version of Spider-Man. That's not my version of
Yeah. Yeah.
Wolverine,
Yeah. Yeah.
So I want the one I grew up with. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of split in the middle on Marvel Legends, like because they do that. They'll be like half of them will be comic book or old 90s cartoon and half of them will be
Yeah.
MCU. Like
Yeah.
one wave will be MCU, one wave will be that. So I can kind of pick and choose. But then when you go to vintage is everything I collected when I was a kid. So, like, I've even got Weeble Wobbles because when I was a kid, my very first toy was a Mickey Mouse Weeble Wobble.
Okay.
Weebles wobble but don't fall down. Did you ever hear that?
Yeah. I know.
I don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've got a Mickey Mouse Clubhouse Weeble Wobble set, and like one of the followers of the channel just sent me a 1976 Mr. Potato Head in the box. And I was like, when I opened it, I was like, holy crap, this is awesome. Because it's like, yeah, people might think it's cheesy or whatever. Why the hell do you have a Mr. Potato Head? But I
Mm.
had one when I was a kid. And so it's like, I must have mentioned it on one of the shows, and this listener paid attention, and they were like, I have an old thing I don't need, and they threw it in a box and mailed it to me, and I was overjoyed to get this. And now he's on display in the other room, and
Wow.
so I mean, I love Centurions. I love the old Rambo stuff. I love Chuck Norris and the Karate Commandos. You know what I mean? So like I like getting all that, and it brings back, even if I just
Yeah.
had one or two of them as a kid. Like we might have had Chuck Norris and a Ninja when we were a kid. We didn't have the whole line. But
Mm.
now as an adult, I'm like, I can get the Corvette car. I can get the bad guy. I can get these guys, so it's like I'll build
Mm.
the display around it, and then I'll be happy with that example in my collection. So
Yeah.
I've got an example of Starcom. I've got an example of Black Star and He-Man and Thundercats, and you know what I mean? So I like to have something from just about every toy line that when we were kids, we had one or two action figures of.
Mm.
Um, I think I might have mentioned earlier that like the biggest ones were Star Wars and GI Joe, but
Yeah.
we also had like I had three Transformers. My brother had two Transformers. We had like I had He-Man, my brother had Skeletor, but we didn't get much more than that. But
Mm.
still today as an adult, even though I only had one or two He-Man figures as a kid, it makes me want to have like 20 of them as an adult. Like I
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
get all these ones that I couldn't get when I was a kid, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
So
definitely.
it just snowballs into, you know, and that's the thing, like you got to keep it in check, but at the
Yeah.
same time, it does kind of snowball into this thing where you're like, well, now that I've
Well,
got
easily
these,
done. Easily
now
done.
that you know, now that I've got these 10, maybe I get the other two, and then it's like, well, now I'm close to finishing the line. I might as well get the other three, you know. And
So, so you sounds like you're a completist. Are you a completist?
on some things, but not everything, you know. And
Yeah.
like I said, actually, a lot of times it has to do with how much it's going to set me back, because
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
something like the Centurions, for example. I love the Centurions. I think they're one of
Mm.
the best toy lines to ever come out from Kenner. And they're like an 8-inch action figure that has all these attachments like wings and missiles and things that can attach to them. But it took me years of tracking down parts to build just the three main characters, you know, Ace McCloud, Max Ray, and Jake Rockwell, and to get all
Mm.
their equipment that they came with initially. But
Yeah.
but if I were to be a completist in the line of the Centurions and buy all the extra stuff that, you know, the other versions of those characters,
Yeah.
you know, it would cost me like tens of thousands of dollars, because some of those sets are $1,000 each nowadays, you know. And so I'm happy just having the three main characters and a little couple extra bits
Mm.
that I found here and there. Be but quite frankly, if I was a millionaire and had unlimited funds or something, yeah, I might complete the line.
Yeah.
But
But
I
where's the fun in that?
but as yeah, but as like the way I am now, I'm happy just
Mm.
having that, what I have, and having that example in the collection, you know. And
Oh, fair point. Fair point.
but
That's
you're
a
right,
great point.
yeah. What the also the fun part about it is, if you do go to a car boot sale, or you go to community sale, or you're out and about and there's a garage sale, someone just getting rid of stuff and
Mm.
they're in their front lawn, and you happen to stumble across that thing and it's like $5, you're like, holy crap, you know. And you
Exactly.
want
Yeah. Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
that's the
Oh,
fun,
yeah.
and then you bring it home and you proudly add it to your collection. And you
So,
know. And
so the fun of it is it will lead us into the because I've got two questions left for you. So, what gives you that toy collecting buzz?
it's that I love the hunt. That's part of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
The hunt, and I enjoy putting stuff on display. I
Mm.
enjoy talking about it, you know, like every it's kind of gotten into a routine now where every Sunday morning I'll bring out something vintage from the collection, and I have a live stream called Sunday Morning Vintage.
Mm.
And I mean, I started at 7 a.m. Eastern time. So and it's really early for a lot of people in the United States. But what I found is it's early afternoon or lunchtime for guys in the UK, and
Yeah.
people in Australia, it's right before they go to bed. So Usual Mike and a few other people from
Yeah.
Australia will come on right before they go to bed and be like, "Hey, John, what are you playing with today?" You know, and I'll break those things out. I'll talk about the toy line, show off what I have. We might discover new things about them or learn things because people in the chat will be talking about it, but messaging, asking questions, doing whatever in the chat. And quite frankly, you mentioned earlier about playing with them. Sometimes
Mm.
I just get hooked on, like, oh, you know, like last week it was like Zartan, you know, we were showing the fake face that Zartan, the original Zartan,
Yeah.
had. And I was like,
Mm.
he wore this fake face so he could go into Walmart. And we did this scene where, you know, we're walking through Walmart with a couple other GI Joes talking about, you know, how they don't know it's Zartan because he's got the mask on, you know. So like we're playing with the toys on the stream as well, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's just all that together, and then it just makes you go like, oh man, I still need to get a Firefly, like I don't have him. So you get kind of back into tracking down those figures that you don't have. And
Mm.
uh and like I said, I love going to the hunt, going to, like you said, car boot sales, garage sales, community sales, like any kind of thing where you might run into something for cheap, you know, for
Yeah. Yeah.
a reasonable price, you know. And I love that hunt. I love just searching. And you know, if I find a bin, if someone's got a bin at a flea market and it's random toys, I'll dig through that bin, hoping to find something in there that I've been wanting, you know, and
Awesome.
it's just that, and the community. I mean, this wonderful group of people that we've all come in contact with through YouTube in the last
Mm,
3 or 4 years. I mean, this community is just, I think it's one of the greatest experiences and greatest group of people that I've known in my entire life. You know what I mean? Like these,
mm,
I mean, it's a pleasure to get to know everybody and that we're all doing the same thing. We might collect different things, but we're all
yeah.
collecting and we're kind of in this together and working together, and it's fun.
Mm.
It's so much fun, you know?
Oh, definitely. Oh, I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, I consider myself still new to this. So, although I've been collecting for a while, a few years, this now is just like since March. Or how to say that? You know, I met people in 2020. And like people like Scuba Pete, Chris Meanwhile, Chasing 80s Toys, Bob
Yeah.
Hanson, Gojitron, all those kind of guys. And I've been friends with them since 2020. And it
Yeah, they
was, yeah,
speaking of, I mean, it's through guys like them. Scuba and I built this, you know,
wow.
and it's an original Sky Striker from GI Joe, and I this was my brother's favorite toy when we were
Yeah,
kids.
yeah.
And I don't know if you know the story, Stu, but my brother a year or so ago came down with bladder cancer, and he
Uh,
lost his
okay.
kidneys and basically lost everything. His organs, they had to operate and take everything out, his bladder, kidneys, everything. And he's been fighting, and I wanted to bring him a Sky Striker and be like, remember
Yeah,
this, you know, and he doesn't have any place to put it at his place. But so after we
yeah,
played with it a little bit, I brought it back to my house. But it's like it just brought back those memories. But I found a Sky Striker that was a brown body but with white wings. It had nice wings.
yeah,
And Scuba Pete, you know, was like, I got an extra Sky Striper. Let me help out. And he sent me one with a white body, but the wings were messed up. So I had to
yeah.
take it all apart and put the wings on. And then someone else like found some of the missiles and other parts
Wow.
I was missing. And so we ended up with basically like 3 Sky Strikers. And then I built one that works and is complete and looks pretty
That looks
good, you
absolutely
know?
fantastic. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And it's all because of this community. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's all
definitely.
because of people like Chris Miwa and Scuba Pete and stuff that you're able to do this, because it's just like the outpouring of just community and the willingness to help you get that one thing you've been wanting for so long. And
Yeah.
you know, and it's just I just think it's great. And I agree. I'm like the meeting all these guys is just part of the the joy in this
Mm.
collecting. You know what? Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
yeah, definitely. I mean, for me, I get the buzz of speaking to people like yourself and people that I've seen on YouTube, but I've had no real contact with them. And ever since doing this series, I've just spoken to so many amazing people. I
Yeah,
really
yeah,
have, and I you know I've got a whole list of people that I've still yet to chat to on this series and stuff like that, and I'm absolutely loving it, absolutely
yeah,
loving it because
yeah.
I'm a nosy git, John, and I like listening to people's stories. Everybody's got a story,
Yeah,
everybody's totally different, but with why they collect and what they collect, and that's great because collecting is something that is personal to people.
yeah, yeah,
We can't all be collecting the same things. I mean, yes, a lot of people do collect Star Wars, GI Joe, and stuff like that, but there's so many unique collectors out there as well, and I really do. I find it so interesting, and
well,
you know, I love this sort of thing, and the
well,
community as well is
a little bit about it too though is, even if you collect the same things, like you know, yeah, a lot of us collect Star Wars, but I get totally enthralled when I look at, say, Matt at Zero Hunter Collector there, Zero
yeah,
Hunters.
yeah,
And you know, I look at Matt's collection, the way he's displayed it, It gives you
Yeah.
inspiration. It gives you
Yeah.
inspiration,
Yeah.
gives you joy. You're like, oh, I
Mm.
did it this way, but Matt did it that way, and that's cool too, you know. Or you look at like Bosk bounties and you see that
Yeah.
wall of them all stuck up there, and it's like, oh my gosh, that looks cool. I wish I had space to do them all like that, you know.
Yeah.
And
No,
so I mean,
there's
like,
some really amazing collections out there for sure.
yeah,
Definitely.
so even when you collect the same things, we all do it differently and display things differently and appreciate them in kind of slightly different ways, but
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah.
it makes you as the viewer like you know, when you look at their collection, you also appreciate it in that new way, you
Mm.
know.
Oh,
And
definitely,
I
without a
love
doubt. I
that.
mean, I go by. There's no right way of collecting. There's no wrong way of collecting. There's no right way to display something, and there's no wrong way to display something. It's all
Exactly.
about personal choice, and
Yeah.
that's why I love this. It's just, speaking to yourself, you've got a beautiful collection. You display it totally different to someone like, say, Gojitron. I mean, it's everybody's so different, and yeah, I just love it. It just, yeah, it's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, and
I'm,
Stu,
I'm,
there's a lot the same. Like that's why I tried to start doing this. I don't know if you saw the Transformers documentary that I did. It's like over an hour long. But
okay.
I'm currently working on one that's related to Star Wars and
Mm,
memories that we all have of Star Wars as a kid.
okay.
And like that's the same thing. Like I enjoy talking to the people in the community and learning about their life, their childhood, their collecting habits.
Mm,
And when I did the Transformers one, it was like sitting down with Tez and Jody, the Gen X Toys Geek, and a few other
yeah.
people, and also going back and finding people from my childhood. Like I found a guy that
Oh
I went to
wow.
elementary
Okay.
school with, this guy
Mm,
Paul that I went to elementary school with, and Paul used to come over to my house and we would play Transformers together and stuff.
mm.
So it was like going back and bringing up those memories, and I ended up cutting all that footage together and making a documentary about
Oh wow.
Transformers toys, and what it means to everybody. And now I'm trying to do one on Star Wars. It's taking a
That would be
lot
amazing.
longer. It's taking a lot
Yeah.
longer
I
to
bet.
get
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
but it's like I
Awesome.
in just because of this interaction with people in the community, the same way you're doing here with me and with everybody else that you do for my collecting life, it's like the stories that come out of it. I kind of want to, you know, capture those in some way and
Yeah.
put them out there, and
Yeah. I get
that's
that.
kind of why I've been doing that as well. You know what I mean? In addition to just
Yeah.
talking toys on the channel and doing that kind of stuff, I have a few other
Definitely.
like long format goals to do. You know, like yeah, yeah,
Oh well. Yeah. Fair
yeah,
play. Fair
yeah,
play.
yeah.
Unfortunately, it is coming to the end of the chat. I have one last question for you, John. What does your collection mean to you, my friend?
Whoa, that's a that's a tough one. I mean, I mean, like I said, a lot of it is community. I mean, I mean, like when I grew up in New York, um, I had a lot of friends, you know,
Yeah.
and I had a couple friends that were big into collecting, and it brought us closer together, collecting and having that mutual interest. And then I moved to Seattle in like 2001. I lived there for 17 years. The collecting world and that kind of stuff is what helped open up the possibility of meeting new friends. You know, when you
Yeah.
go to a new city, a new place, you don't know anybody. Well, it turned out that having the collection and having this passion sort of connected me with other people, you know,
Yeah.
whether it was fellow gamers, because I do retro games as well. I love my Atari 2600. I love Super Nintendo, regular
Mm,
Nintendo, the Sega Genesis. You know, so it's like whether it's meeting through video games or meeting through these old toys, these vintage toys, it was the spark that got me to start knowing other people and getting friends. And
yeah.
again, after moving from Seattle to Florida, um, I don't have like a public life in Florida where I can meet a lot of people my age and
Mm,
stuff. So, but this YouTube community and collecting through the internet and meeting these people online in this great community that we have, it's kind of done the same thing. The toy collection has brought us together. So a
mm,
lot of what this means is community to me, community and friendship with like-minded people, and it's now stretched not just from my own little hometown, it's stretched to all over the world. You know what I mean? Like we have people in this community from the UK, from
Mm,
Canada, from Japan, from Australia. You know, it's like it's just
yeah.
Germany. You know, it's everywhere now. So, and then the other part is the nostalgia. You know, I I don't know. I just it's like I just love that feeling that these things bring back to me of when I was a kid. You know what I mean? Like that,
Mm,
just that feeling of a simpler time of just like, you know, it was just play. You were just having fun.
yeah. Yeah.
And when I see some of these toys, some of these figures that I had when I was a kid, when I find something like very recently, I was out and about and I found a 1968 Mattel Hot Wheels carry case. It's shaped like a mag wheel, like a muscle
Okay.
car
Yeah.
wheel.
Yeah.
And the
Mm,
case opens up and it held the 12 original cars from 1968. And when I
wow.
saw that sitting on the table, I suddenly had a flashback of a memory that I hadn't thought about probably in 20, 30 years. I don't know how long, but I suddenly remembered sitting in the living room at my grandfather's house when we were little kids, and my grandfather bringing this out to us and saying, "This belonged to your Uncle Paul. You can play with these cars while you are here, but when you go home, we got to put them back in the case, and I'm going to put it back in the basement to store. Next time you come over, you kids can play with it again. I'll get it out and you can play with it, but you can't have them. They're not yours. So you got to take care of them, and we're going to put them back in their place." But I can remember opening that case up and being like, wow, look at these cool cars, you know, and my brother and I running around on the
Yeah.
carpet with
Yeah.
him. And, you know, and it was
Wow.
like all that stuff came flooding back to me that I hadn't thought of in years, tens of years, you know, and it was like a childhood memory just flushing back into me like a wave. And I was like, holy crap. So I had to buy the thing. I was like, how much for that case? And
Of
I
course you
bought
did.
it.
Yeah.
I bought it and I brought it home. And now I want to find the original 12 Hot Wheels cars to
Wow.
put on
Yeah.
display with the case, you know. And so it's like it's that kind of stuff that just keeps me going with the collection, because you just,
Yeah.
I don't know, I just love those memories and those times when you think about that stuff. I don't know. I
No,
don't,
it's
you
yeah.
know.
I listen. I buy into what you're saying. I'm absolutely 100% agree with what you say. It's just yeah, yeah, just amazing, amazing. Unfortunately, that has come to the end of the chat. Um, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, John. Your enthusiasm is very contagious. It's infectious.
I know I could be
You
bolsterous and like loud and like,
no, but
you
you know what?
know.
Listen, I, I like the fact that people get excited about talking about toys in their collection, and for me, I can sit here and it makes me smile, and you have made me smile in this. I mean, and honest to God, I just really appreciate you taking the time to do this, mate. It does mean a lot. Where can people find you, media wise, social media wise?
Oh yeah, I'm pretty much posting on everything today. I mostly chat on Twitter. Like if you want to have a conversation, Twitter's the best place to go. I'm at Awesome Geek Show on Twitter, but I do have a presence on Facebook, Instagram. We recently I put up myself on what is it? Counter Social. It's a new social media thing coming up. So and all of those I'm at Super Awesome Geek Show, because
Okay.
they all let me have the full name. Twitter, when I joined Twitter, they wouldn't let me do Super Awesome Geek Show. They said it was too many characters, so I had to do only Awesome Geek Show. Yeah. So, but
Okay.
um,
Well,
but
what I'll do is, sorry, go on.
I literally pretty much just post the new episode on the other ones, and sometimes share a photo or something or a little video on Instagram. But if you want to have a conversation with me, Twitter's where I actually conversation with people. You know.
Okay. Well, what I'll do is I'll put the links to all your social platforms or social media platforms up in the description below. So, um, if honest to God, I've loved every minute of this. I've loved listening to you. You're passionate. You can see the excitement and hear the excitement in your voice when you're talking about your collection and toys and your memories and stuff like that. And there's a charm to that. I just listen. I love talking to everybody that I've spoken to on this series. But yeah, I'm yeah. It's just great. Just
Well,
love
Stu,
talking to you.
likewise, man. It's been a real pleasure.
I
And
appreciate you doing it. Thank you.
I know this wasn't right the format to do so, but it's like there was a lot of times where I'm just like, I want to know that about Stu. I want to like get in and dig into your collection.
Oh yeah. No.
Yeah, like so.
The thing is, the way this show works is I'm the one who's asking the questions. So
Yes, exactly.
So that's a but no,
I'm
that's
just
cool,
saying.
man.
I'm
That's
just
cool.
saying. In the future, we got to have a bigger conversation, dude.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. No worries about that. Unfortunately, that's come to the end of it, John. All I've got left to say is thank you guys for watching. This has been John Adams from the Super Awesome Geek Show. I'm going to rename him as John Adams from the Super Fucking Awesome Geek Show because he is fucking awesome. Thank you guys for watching. Take care, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.
Bye bye.